Right, time to put our discussions on the road this morning, everyone. A while ago, we gave you an insight into some of the political developments that we're now seeing in Nigeria, River State being the epicenter, so to speak, of it all. But just by yesterday, news came through that the Kogi State government has also now announced that all sort of, if you like, convoy and rallies have been banned in the state for security reasons. And this, by some sort of coincidence, is coming at a time where the embattled senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti Udwaga, says she has a homecoming that will also help to amplify the essence and significance of Ramadan, especially for her people in her senatorial districts. There are those who have said that this move by the state government is not particularly about tackling insecurity, as it is focused on trying to ensure that this senator doesn't come through with whatever our intention is for her people. But then there's also the issue of the Treasury single account status of the Federal Capital Territory, which has now been radically altered, for want of better words, by President Bola Tinubu. Now, what that means is that the Treasury single account, which is more like a central repository, all right, for government revenues, will now have the FCT excluded. Before now, what we had in that regard was maybe universities, teaching hospitals, federal medical centers, and a few agencies of the federal government arguing that because of the peculiarity of their work, of their mandates, it was necessary for them to have some sort of TSA exempt status. But today we understand the FCT has been exempted, of course, courtesy of directive by the president. What exactly are the implications? What ramifications does this action hold for not just the FCT, but for Nigeria in general? I'm joined by a businessman, a staunch supporter of President Bola Tinubu, who is also a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress, that is the APC, Chief Chibuna Ubawuike, to help us find sense in all of these conversations and developments. Thank you, Chief, for coming through.
You're welcome.
And let's begin with the first one, since it comes closer to home, the FCT. Before now, I'm sure you are aware that there were tertiary institutions in this country, there were teaching hospitals and several other entities of the government that said, look, we cannot be, as it were, bundled into these TSA arrangements because of the uniqueness of our kind of work and things like that. And there were those who at the time said that argument was totally valid. But today, the FCT has been removed, and the president says, I did that for one main reason, to expedite developments in the nation's capital. Is that valid enough?
Very, very valid. What made the reasons for excluding teaching hospitals and other critical service providers or providing agencies from the TSA is to expedite service delivery. FCT on its own as well is a special, component of the federation. It is a quasi-state. So, and service delivery in FCT supposed to be expedient. It's supposed not to have any clog in its wheel of progress. So, in the wisdom of Mr. President, he had to exclude FCT from TSA so that service delivery and governance delivery in the FCT will be expedited. It is a right decision, and it is in the right direction.
You see, that's the element of irony in it all, because you have states like Lagos, for example. You have a few other states that are, if you like, a bit more pivotal to national development, revenue generation, than a few other states. Is it also possible some of these states can wake up tomorrow and approach the president like the FCT minister had done and say, look, Your Excellency, can we also have an exemption for XYZ reasons?
No. The states on their own are totally different. The states generate their revenues internally, and they make use of their revenues. They did not put it in the TSA pool, except some states that says every agency and ministry of government in their state, they should, channel their revenues
into the same stream,
into a TSA account of the state.
Of the state, okay.
Not the federation.
Not the federation.
States are independent. They run their affairs, on their own. Theirs is independent. But in the case of FCT, mind you, it is the National Assembly that makes laws for the FCT.
Right.
But states have their own state House of Assembly.
That's right.
So FCT being excluded from the TSA account is the right direction, decision in the right direction for expedited governance and service delivery. Mr. President was right in doing that.
How about, what do we say to people who now say that this could just be opening of a kind of Pandora's box, that this could be, they're concerned about abuse of this kind of thing, because the FCT is not always going to be under Mr. Wike. At some point, you're going to have a different minister coming, for example. Yeah. What do we say about addressing any possibility of abuse of this kind of exclusion?
Thank you very much. When you look at the capacity and personality of the person that is, the minister of FCT.
The current one?
No.
At any point?
At any point. Is he the person that can deliver? Is he one that can be trusted? Is he the person that is, how do I put it? A utilitarian person who is given to delivery of project. He is an accountable person. When you look at these variables, and the person, yes, is fit and proper, there wouldn't be any need to say I am withholding or revoking this order granted to the FCT to run its own affairs without channeling the pool of funds to the TSA account. But if the reverse is the case, maybe there might be causes of situation that will call for review. I don't know what I get me.
Very well. Yeah. Of course, nothing's cast in stone, as they say.
Yes.
But let's also go back a little, back into history. You and I just acknowledged a while ago that there had been service delivery components or entities of the government that had been excluded from the same TSA over time. Can we confidently say today that those entities are now more effective today on account of that exclusion than they were before they were excluded?
You should answer that question. But in the case of FCT, we have seen, uncommon service delivery. We have seen uncommon project delivery. We have seen that the funds are plowed to the projects they are tied to. And we are seeing that the contracts that are awarded in FCT are delivered timeously and according to the contents of the contractual agreements that are signed. Unlike what we saw before, what we witnessed before. I could recall some about 10 years ago, we couldn't see any project that was completed in FCT. But today, FCT is a construction site. So the person at the helm of affairs of FCT, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ubawuike, is doing excellently well. And he should be commended for the good work he's doing in FCT. And the funds, that are allocated for projects, he's judiciously using them. We should commend him.
I'm just curious, Chief, for a second. I don't know why you evaded the question about whether or not you can say those other agencies that were excluded are doing better today, because these are also public agencies. You have your eye and your ear out there too, following all of these developments as well. Because you talked about trust a while ago. You said we should look at these variables. Can this person, in the case of FCT, can the minister at any time be trusted? Are they inclined towards delivering projects that serve the overall interest of the people and so on and so forth? But in the past, even in recent history, was some people that had once been trusted, but they had this kind of leverage, for want of better word, and they not only abused it, they bungled it all together.
Yeah, it happens. We are humans. We are imperfect. Chances of abuses of power or privileges are bound to come up. Right. So it behooves the government to look at so person here, is he doing what he's supposed to do? If the person is not performing, the government has the power to hire and fire. They should relieve the person of his position and put someone that can actually deliver the goodies.
Incidentally, Mr. Wike is going to feature a lot in our conversation this morning.
No problem.
But at this point, everyone, we're switching to our second discussion, which focuses on the developments on the ground in Rivers State, South Nigeria. It's been a long time coming, but it will appear every other day Nigerians wake up. It's as if they are waking up to something new on that front. But what exactly are the issues today? Well, for one, we understand that there is a sole administrator in Rivers State now overseeing the affairs of the state. But it will appear again that there are more questions being asked than answers provided. So I'm going to put some of those questions in front of my guests this morning. So, Chief, let's go to River State now.
Okay.
There's a sole administrator in the states.
Yes.
Of course, you are not just only a senior member of the APC, you also are a Nigerian. Yeah. You have heard people talk about these issues. There are those who say that while the president is empowered by Section 305 of the Constitution to declare a state of emergency, giving prescribed conditions, he doesn't in any way have the power to remove the governor, remove the deputy governor, and the entire membership of the State House of Assembly. We don't want to go into all those details just yet. But let's look at the concerns that are now being raised about the management of the state, leadership of the state, overseeing of the state by a sole administrator. And then people have also raised the point that, hold on a second, how is it that every time a state of emergency is declared, a former military man is always brought? Is that not a way of saying that even civilian leadership, including under the leadership of President Tinubu, does not believe that civilians can run a state?
It is not so. Remember, you call it state of emergency. When there is an emergency and state of emergency is declared in the political governance, you look for the person that will carry out those emergency, that will bring about the resolving of those emergency issues. And in the case of Nigeria, due to the peculiarity of our situation, to me, military men perform better. Now, let's go to the case of Rivers as it is. We saw what gave room for the state of emergency to be declared. An ordinary civilian you put there might not be able to perform. He might not have the clout and the zeal and zest to perform as the case should be. But a military man that will have all the paraphernalia of the military will be able to, take care of those situations that gave rise to the emergency rule. That is why.
All right. I want us to look at it from the standpoint of finance, because people are very concerned about that. I'll give an example real quick before we go into, just to establish a perspective. In Edo State, for example, when you had former Governor Obasaki, soon after he won his second term into office in 2020, people thought within a few weeks there would be cabinet up and running. But that didn't happen. And the surprise came from knowing that this was a second term governor. So why would it take you that long? It took former President Muhammadu Buhari about 6 months to put a cabinet in place in 2015. And this was a governor who was spending about 11 months to put up a cabinet in place. And people said, look, this governor has beaten the records of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Again, like I said, the shock came from knowing that this was a second-term governor, was not a neophyte. However, the point being raised at that point was that the Constitution provides very clearly that until you have a cabinet in place in the case of a subnational, there's a threshold in terms of approval for projects and contracts and what have you. In the case of Rivers, you don't have a National Assembly in place. The monies that were not released to a democratically elected governor in the person of Siminalayi Fubara were immediately released to a sole administrator. Of course, all thanks to the courts. But now the concern is, what are the guardrails for this sole administrator in terms of what he spends and what he cannot spend? Let's talk about that.
Thank you very much. Like I was trying to explain, when there is an emergency, a state of emergency declared in a state, in a political setting, the normal operations of government in that state is suspended.
Including the Constitution?
It is called state of emergency.
So do we categorically suspend the Constitution?
No, we cannot suspend the Constitution. But the normal operations of government in a democratic setting is suspended. Now, it is an emergency rule. It is Mr. President that is, administering that state through a proxy. And that proxy is the sole administrator. Mr. President now freezes the power of governance and now delegates it to that proxy to deliver. So the normal, democratic, operations of governance in that state is suspended. The executive is suspended in terms of the governor and his commissioners and his cabinet. The legislature is suspended, especially given the peculiarity of the situation in Rivers State, when it was the executive and the legislature that were at a loggerhead. And then the governor, going by the Supreme Court ruling, said there was no governance in Rivers State. Because in a democracy, the legislature is the soul of democracy. Right. When you take away the legislature, there is no democracy in that particular state. or subnational. And the Supreme Court came to say that there is no governance in Rivers State because of the one leg, the democracy stands on a tripod. The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary.
Right.
So when one leg is broken, that's the legislature, the soul of the democracy, there is no democracy in that state. And the Supreme Court went further to enumerate all the breaches of the Constitution that the governor committed. All the people shouting now did not see anything bad in when the governor was committing those breaches. Now, Mr. President, to save the situation prior to the Supreme Court judgment, called for a truce. They entered into an agreement. All the parties appended their signatures. The governor went home. Those people now that are shouting hue and cry went and told the governor not to obey and implement those agreements. Some of them that call themselves elders went to court to challenge the agreement that Mr. President did in good faith to broker peace. Remember, at times in one's life, you stoop to conquer. They went to challenge the agreement that the governor should not obey, and the governor refused to obey. He even came out to boast that there is no legislature. I don't recognize them. They are existing at my pleasure. I don't recognize them. And he went further to run the government as he wants. Supreme Court says no. You breach the Constitution. There was no governance in the state. And then people are saying, why will Mr. President declare state of emergency in Rivers State and remove the governor and the elected representatives? When the governor was committing breaches against the Constitution, where we are there? They cite instances of the case where there was state of emergency during the former President Jonathan's regime that the democratically elected governors were not removed. Are the situations the same? They are not.
What are the peculiar issues?
I'm coming. In the case of the Northwest and some part of Northeast where President Jonathan declared state of emergency, there was no Supreme Court ruling declaring that there was no governance in those states or in those areas. But in this case, the Supreme Court declared it. And then you want the chief, the officer of the country, the commander-in-chief and armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to watch the situation degenerate. And we saw some statements made by the governor. When they say a witch threatened and the child died at night, they will go for the witch. You say, call boys and say, don't worry, I'll tell you when it is time for you to act or strike. And a few days after, they began to strike. And Mr. President has a lot of information at his disposal that we do not know. What Mr. President did in Rivers State is appropriate, is within the law. Some notable lawyers have come to commend Mr. President. Others that are looking for briefs, who were even parties to the case at the Supreme Court, who failed to adumbrate their matter to adduce their cases in the Supreme Court, are coming to shout using the social media and whatever. It doesn't follow. Mr. President knows what is right for Nigerians. And in the case of Rivers State, he is in order. To me, he is in order in what he did.
Okay, well, Rivers State people will have a different issue altogether. But the case now has, the whole hula baloo around the Rivers State situation has expanded into even Bayelsa State. And you're wondering, yes, we know geographically these states are neighbors. With two different governors, as it were. But how is it that we're dealing with an issue in Rivers State and then Governor Diri is also perturbed about this development in his states? What is the dynamic playing out?
There is nothing to worry about in Bayelsa State. Governor Diri, to the best of my knowledge, is crying more than they believed. What has the issue in Rivers State got to do with Bayelsa? If it's not to create ethnic tension, by the time until we stop, promoting, ethnic superiority in Nigeria, we stop, playing ethnic politics in Nigeria. That is when we'll have peace. Something happened in Rivers State. Some group of people say in Bayelsa, say they want to receive the Honorable Minister of FCT. You say it is a security threat. It is that. No, we don't play ethnicity with national issues now. We are talking about governance. Allow governance to take place. What has happened in Rivers State? The federal government has taken care of it. Allow them the sole administrator to do his job. Allow people to go about their normal businesses within the law. Why trying to play ethnic politics and trying to stoke tensions where there is none? I take exception to what the governor of Bayelsa State is doing. It is a politics of bitterness that he is playing.
The sole administrator obviously is a military man, and people say, well, military people have never been known to develop a society, especially on that democratic system such as we have. Is there any chance, of course we can't see tomorrow, but given the trajectory we've seen in this country, the pattern of declaration of state of emergency, is there any possibility that the River State is going to emerge better on account of this initial 6 months of this emergency rule?
Well, we are watching the events as they unfold, and it is our hope that they will emerge better after the 6 months. And let's see how it goes. That's all I can say for now.
Have you been reflecting or maybe even responding to the issues around the money aspect of this conversation? There are those who say that, look, this is a ploy to plunder the
Now,
states.
let me ask them, when the governor was spending money without appropriation, where were they? Those that are crying now, that's why administrator money has been released to him. He needs money to run the government. Governors did not stop in River State. Workers are there, they must earn their salaries, right? But because the former governor, who is now suspended, was not running a democratic government, that was why the court said money should not be released to him in a democracy. Now, the democracy in River State, as exemplified by the executive, legislature, the judiciary, is not there for now. It is an emergency rule that is there. The administrator needs money to run the government. The people that are shouting and crying, we are those benefiting from what the breaches of the constitution the governor was committing. He was running the government without appropriation. No legislature, you carry budget to 3 persons to pass for you, the speaker, the deputy speaker, and the house leader, according to them. Are we living in Banana Republic? And they were applauding him. Now the court says, Supreme Court, not even cause of first instances.
Okay.
The Supreme Court says what you did is against the Constitution. There is no governance in River State. I don't know whether you get me. How can you do away with the legislature and be running your show yourself? The money should not be released to you until you present the budget to the National House of Assembly for appropriation.
Efforts to present
that is show, that Rasmasters.
But he was locked out of that show. It was practically locked out of the complex.
I am a politician. I know. See, let me tell you something. There is a procedure. If you want, look at Mr. President. When he wants to make budget presentation to the National Assembly, he writes them that, subject to your convenience, I would want to come to make budget presentation on such and so date. The National Assembly will write back to Mr. President, telling him whether that date he has chosen or he proposed is convenient or not. If it is convenient, they tell him it is such and so day that it will be convenient for us to wait and receive you and the budget. That is how it goes. You don't just say you sent a letter today and you drove tomorrow to go. No. Have they written back to you? That is a procedure. All the people coming to do, you carry the press so that they will see you are doing. That is blackmail, political blackmail, to curry the favor and the emotion of people. It doesn't work in partisan politics that we play. There must be correspondence. You write me, I respond to you, and we agree on a date. Then you come on that date. If such has happened and he goes and they did not receive him, then we can crucify the legislature, the state members of the State House of Assembly. But that did not happen.
You have made continual reference to the Supreme Court judgment that said, well, there was no governance in River State.
Yeah.
But the Constitution, of course, I understand you are not a lawyer, but the Constitution is the ground norm.
Yeah.
The Constitution does not in any way provide for the president to remove a democratically elected.
When they go, there is no governance in the state. What is the essence of your election? When the Supreme Court of the land says there is no governance, the Mr. President cannot wait for that illegality to continue.
But was that the only option? I mean, removing the governor, the deputy governor. And
there was crisis that was brewing, and that crisis, if left unchecked, by what the action Mr. President took, would have snowballed into an unimaginable, catastrophe. And Mr. President had to move in to checkmate it. The governor give way. The legislature give way. And you cannot say that somebody that is an agent provocateur should benefit from, the state of emergency. No, you should leave him. He can't be there now because they won't causing the problem. So the governor give way. The legislature give way. Let there be an administrator. I have taken over the power to run the state through this man that I have appointed for the period of 6 months. So let Mr. President do what he knows how best to do to bring, calm the situation down. And remember, as it is now, if people should allow things without, their vicious propaganda and, inciting statements and whatever, under normal circumstances, this situation, what Mr. President did is to allow for there to be a rapprochement. For the governor, the areas the Supreme Court has outlined, and areas he has made mistake because I believe he must have realized that he has been misled by those that were advising him.
That's the governor.
Yes, to make way to look for how to make peace with members of the State House of Assembly, so that there will be peace in the state. And so that by the time, the end of the 6 months, if he is called back, the will of governance in the state will continue to roll without hindrance. But they are making inciting statements. Steve is advising him, and he's listening to them, worsening the situation. Things will not work that way.
It's 6 months, not too long for it. So, I mean, one would have thought within a couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 months, whatever it is you want to do to calm the situation, stabilize the state, as it were, restore order, and of course governance to the state would have been accomplished. Then you get the governor, the House of Assembly back, and all of that. Why do we need an entire 6-month period?
To rebuild is difficult. It takes time to rebuild, but it takes just a second to destroy. So rebuilding process takes a longer time. That is why 6 months might not even be enough to me. Might not be.
So maybe that's the reason he says initial 6 months.
Thank you very much. Might not even be enough. If the situation does not improve at the end of the 6 months, the Mr. President is at liberty to propose to the National Assembly that he will extend the emergency rule.
Again, that probably supports the permutation in some places that this is people are insinuating that this is about 2027 for the president.
No, it is
not. That the president has taken over the state.
It is not.
In the interest of, his own interests going into 2027.
Mr. President did not cause the problem ab initio.
But he's not taking advantage of it.
He's not taking advantage of it. He wants peace in that state. Ab initio, Mr. President did not cause the problem. This is barely 2 years of the government, the elected government in the state. Why this kind of crisis? And remember, all of them, they are members of the same political family. So why this problem that you cannot resolve? The members of the House of Assembly and the governor are members of the same political family. So why can't you resolve it? I mean, let's ask ourselves the question. Those that you go on the media and begin to postulate and the profile, incite people and talk anything that they like because they are looking for brief, if they are lawyers, and others because they hate someone that they always mention his name because of his political clout. It's not the way to go.
Is the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association, also speaking against this declaration of emergency because they're looking for brief as well?
Let me tell you something. NBA is made up of individuals.
Right.
Thank you very much. Individual lawyers. And individual lawyers understand the law individually, not as a group. I have had the former president of the NBA come to talk about this matter and say that Mr. President was in order.
But the incumbent president hasn't said that.
Thank you very, very much. A former president, not one of the senior lawyers we have in this country, very sound, says the Mr. President is in order. There's another senior lawyer, well respected in the legal profession in Nigeria, says Mr. President is in order.
But the numbers, there are many of them. The numbers in terms of the lawyers who
forget
support
about the numbers
or against.
Let me tell you something. Yes. It is not always the majority that says the thing as it should be. Not even when it comes in the case of law. It is not the majority position that is the position of the law. It is not. That's why in some cases, like in the case of River State, it was the minority judgment of the Court of Appeal judge that was upheld at the Supreme Court. So it doesn't follow whether it is the majority that are talking or whatever. No. What is the position of the law? What is the circumstances that gave rise to this situation? What should have been done in this situation to save Nigeria and save the state and the citizens of the state? What should be done should have been done by Mr. President so that the will of governance in the state will continue to run unhindered. Those are the questions we should ask, not for pecuniary considerations.
Incidentally, it will appear you're saying that we should fly with minority report in this case. But maybe that's...
No, it's not with minority. What I'm saying is that the position of the law in this case, people will go and put one place. I was listening to one lawyer the other day. That one now was started and saying that Section 305 is inferior to other sections of the Constitution. There is no section in the Constitution that is inferior to each other. Imagine a lawyer saying such a thing. So what do you make of that lawyer? What do you make of a lawyer that says a particular section of the Constitution is inferior to the other? A section that gave power to Mr. President to declare an emergency rule, you say it is inferior to other sections, and you call yourself a lawyer.
Maybe we refer him to the legal, the legal practitioners disciplinary committee, the LPDC. But that's for another day. But again, a very ranking member of your party, former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, who also had been a minister just a few years ago, now says that Nigerians and indeed the political class and political parties and their leaders must be weary. That from the way this is going, President Bola Tinubu, according to him, by his own assessment, can wake up one morning and remove a governor who doesn't serve his interests. That's a member of your party, for example.
Let me tell you something. His Excellency, former Governor Chibike Amechi, is still suffering the loss syndrome. And he's speaking from the suffering of the loss syndrome. Immediately he lost the presidential primaries of our party, he became anti-government. He began to attack our president. Watch all his statements from the time he lost the primaries to the time of the election. He worked against Mr. President's election. And Mr. President, by the grace of God, won the election. He has never seen any good in all that Mr. President does. So his statement should not be taken serious. He's talking from, the loss of the presidential ticket. The syndrome is still worrying him.
But all of this doesn't look good on your party. I mean, the image, yes, people say politicians really don't care about image, they care about winning elections. But what does this say about the standing of your party, even though it's the ruling party at the national level and has more governors in this country today?
My party is doing fine, fantastically well in terms of governance delivery. Yes, there are problems. And the problem was not started by my party. My party is doing everything possible to get the problem solved through the Mr. President, who is doing fantastically well. In partisan politics that we play in Nigeria, it is like barracks. Soldier go, soldier come, barrack remain. People will go out of the party. People will work against the party. Other people will come into the party to strengthen the party. That is how it is. The image of my party is fantastically okay. There is no problem with the image of my party. My party is doing fine.
I think maybe in passing, you were just probably, you were inadvertently referring to Senator Shehu Sani in Kaduna State, who has now returned to your party. Yes,
no, I'm not referring to a particular individual.
And he wants to run for a Senate seat again in 2027.
I don't know about that.
But he lost his title in 2027 right now. We're taking a quick break right now, everyone. When we return, we'll talk a little more about River State and all of the issues happening down there. And then we'll also turn our attention for a few minutes to Kogi and what all of this means for the polity in this country. Do stay with us.
Do you know that global television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch global television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to global television.
All right, let's just continue our conversation about River State, and then we'll veer off briefly to also look at what's happening in Kogi right now. I mean, still talking about River State, there are people who argue, even within both the APC and the PDP, that President Bola Tinubu is, whether he realizes it or not, making Nyesom Wike a hound dog that might also come to haunt him sometime in the future. Is that your sentiment?
It can never be my sentiment. Let me tell you something about partisan politics and partisan political power that we play in Nigeria. Mr. President, my president, President Bola Tinubu, is a seasoned politician. And every politician needs a politician that has clout, that has electoral value, that has street credibility, and a politician that can deliver. His Excellency Dr. Nyesom Wike is a politician that has political value. He's a politician that has clout. He's a politician that has street credibility and can deliver results. So it is not out of place that His Excellency Nyesom Wike and Mr. President are working together. Remember, towards the build-up to the 2023 election, His Excellency Ubawuike became a maker, not his house. He became a maker of a sort. Every major contender, of the presidential ticket was going to him to seek his support. If he has nothing to offer, they will not be going to him to ask for his support. Remember too that in some states where my party has governors, they could not give my president 25% vote. We could not win in those states. But His Excellency Ubawuike delivered the River State for Mr. President, a PDP state. I don't know whether you understand. So those that are talking against him, one comes at these categories of people. People who hate his political guts. People who are envious that he did not support their candidate. These are the people that you see talk against them. And they are the vocal few, but they have access to the media. What he did as a governor in his state, even former President Buhari, the president of APC government, gave him an award as Mr. Project. Nobody will shy away or take it away from his performance as a governor in his state. Mr. President then gave him an award. And as FCT minister, we are seeing what he's doing is quite axiomatic. Even the blind sees what he's doing in FCT. They are envious of his political clout, his political value, and the street credibility he has. He delivers when given an assignment. That is why they are envious of him. They are talking bad of him.
But are we going to also sit here and pretend that there is no fire in this? Because they say for every smoke there's fire, right? That there's no smoke without fire, they say. The genesis of all of this, people will argue, which I'm also sure you're privy to, at least to a large extent, is the feud that started between Wike and Governor Fubara, for example. How is it that nobody's having the conversation as to what exactly brought up that controversy, that tussle, that now led to all of this state of emergency being declared in the states and the hula baloo around this development?
Thank you. That's the question you should ask those people. What brought about this problem between Governor Fubara and His Excellency Ubawuike? Has Governor Fubara come out to say, this is the problem, this is the problem? No. Let me take you back to what happened in Anambra in 2003, when a sitting governor was kidnapped and under duress was asked to resign.
Chris Ngige.
Thank you very much. When that incident, happened, Chris Ngige came out to voice out, look at what is happening, look at what they did. Yes, I signed this agreement. I did this, I did that. I so place and whatever. People saw what the problem was. In this case, what is preventing Governor Fubara to tell the Nigerians what the problem is instead of propaganda? He has not. So why will he always say it is weak, it is weak, it is weak? And people who enlisted Wike support during the election and he did not support them are angry that he made them to lose the election. They are now fanning the embers of catastrophe, embers of commotion, embers of conflagration using the media. Why? What did His Excellency Ubawuike do? Let Governor Fubara come and tell us, look at what happened. This is the genesis of the problem, so that we know where to get to solve it. Mr. President, in his wisdom, has called for a truce. They entered into an agreement. These people that are not saying, Mr. President, come and see where you will lend your support to resolve this problem. We are there. After signing the agreement, they were the ones that told the Governor Fubara not to obey the agreement, not implement the agreement. Even they went to court to challenge the agreement. So why are you calling Mr. President now? Mr. President said the day Pandef went to visit, that he foresaw this thing happening. That was why he mediated. And they had an agreement. It was the same elders, some of them that are here, that went to repudiate the agreement, breach the agreement, tell the governor not to obey the agreement, not implement it. And look at where it has landed. They are now crying. Why are you crying? You caused the problem. And mind you, the people that Governor Fubara has gone to make friends with, who are his advisors, were those that oppose his emergence as a governor. How can you make your enemy your advisor?
But again, you politicians say that there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies.
Thank you very much, but you should know that when there is a betrayal, even when the person comes back to you, there is a way you deal with that person. Somebody that opposed you viciously, opposed you, did everything to truncate your candidacy. Now is your very, very best friend. Now you are an advisor. You should be circumspect in that, in taking his advice.
But it's not so curious, Chief, that Wike himself, too, on the other hand, because my principal would say if one person is not talking, the other one is talking. If Fubara is not talking, for example, I mean, this is just me speculating and playing the devil's advocate, because he feels he's an executive governor of a state and he doesn't want to rock the boat. Wike is probably in a much better situation to speak about these things. Every time journalists would ask him about what exactly the basis of the feud was, all he told them was he doesn't like ungrateful people. He doesn't like ungrateful people. So the question should be, what exactly has Governor Fubara not been grateful for to Mr. Wike?
Well, I have not heard him repeatedly say he hates ungrateful people. Ungrateful, he has, throughout his 8 years as governor, I mean, His Excellency Dr. Ezemoye Wike, even while as governor, he tells you he hates ungrateful people. But in the case of Fubara, he has always maintained that let the rule of law, he wants, the rule of law to take its place. Let everything be done according to the rule of law. I have heard him several times say that. Let everything be done according to the rule of law. You cannot burn down the State House of Assembly, demolish it, chase them away, and be dealing with 3 members of the House of Assembly and say you are obeying rule of law. That was the genesis of the problem. If he had wanted to rebuild that place, he had over a year to rebuild the place he demolished. He did not. What are we talking about? All the people that are now shouting, when he was doing all those things, it was good in their eyes. He was doing fine because he was fighting their, in quote, their enemy. Now they can say, what you did is anomalous. It's against the law. You breach the Constitution. There is no governance in River State. Let them tell me, in any of the states that state of emergency was declared previously, whether there was any pronouncement of the Supreme Court that there was no governance in those states. So if there was, will Mr. President fold his arms and watch things degenerate into a level that is uncontrollable? None. So why would Wike on his own says, let there be rule of law. Let rule of law be obeyed. Governance should be carried out according to the rule of law. And the rule of law in a democracy is that there must be a legislature, there must be a judiciary, there must be an executive. If you are doing the way with any arm of these 3 arms of government, there is no rule of law.
Again, Wike has always said that he can't watch someone else take away his structures, apparently in reference to Governor Fubara and all of that. But let's not go into all that, even though we know that there are people, even within your party, who believe that
Governor Fubara has no capacity to take away His Excellency.
Even as a sitting governor.
He has no capacity to do that. See, I told you that Wike is a politician that has political value. He has political clout and he has street credibility. He has grassroots support. Since the advent of this Fourth Republic, from 1999 to 2023, it has been PDP winning River State. No other party has won. Former Governor Chibika Mechi, even as a sitting governor of River State in APC, could not win River State for APC. But Wike, a sitting governor of PDP, won River State for APC. What are we talking about? Remember, Governor Fubara is a political neophyte. He has not been a politician. It was Governor Wike that brought him into the political race. So he needs time to learn the ropes, to learn the game of politics. He cannot take away Governor Wike's political structures. It's not possible. All the politicians we value in River State and that have clout are with Wike. And they command, a grassroots support. And the grassroots support is, organic. It is not rented crowd. All the politicians in River State that has clout and value are with His Excellency Ubawuike. And they have massive clout.
But again, let's just use this medium to quickly look at a different issue altogether. The case of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan seems to be moving away now from the Senate to Kogi State. It's almost like the issue of it's like the whole problem is coming closer to home right now. The lady had announced just a few days ago that she'll be coming home, and they said it's homecoming. She wants to meet with her people, interact with them, and share Salah package, as it were, and all of that. But just yesterday, the government officially came out with a release to say, look, we are banning all of these rallies and sirens and motorcades, all of these convoy, what have you, and so on and so forth. Of course, the government predicates this on security issues, want to tackle insecurity, blah, 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 blah. But the question is, people have asked, why is this coming at a time when this senator is coming back home? And then she's also facing a recall back at home from our senatorial district, and so on and so forth. I mean, you are a politician. What exactly is playing out here?
The governor of Kogi State, His Excellency Usman Ododo, has access to security report that I and you do not have access to.
Right.
And if the security report he has access to indicates that there's going to be problem, so and so place. I read there are places they mentioned. So the access he has to the security report indicates that there's going to be problems in so and so places. And the problems will snowball into an unimaginable proportion. It behoves him as the chief security officer of the state to take proactive actions to nip the problem in the bud. So what he has done to me is to nip the problem in the bud based on the security report at his disposal.
Again, that raises the question of the battle that has started. I mean, I use battle advisedly here, between former governor, the immediate past governor, Yahaya Bello, and Senator Akpoti Uduaghan a few years ago. Of course, Governor Ododo is the political son, if you like, godson of Yahaya Bello. All right. There are those who believe that he's taking that fight from where his godfather left off. And of course, given the battle that Senator Akpoti Uduaghan is now engaged in or is now grappling with, it's just going to be, I mean, the whole intention is to complicate this situation for her. I mean, does this not look more like, more than a coincidence for you?
It does not. People are free. They are at liberty to hold whatever opinion they want to hold. But the governor, being the chief security officer of the state, has security reports at his disposal. And if it indicates there's going to be problems in some places, it behoves him to take proactive action to stop that thing from happening. And if there are people that might be caught in the web of those action, so be it, for there to be peace and progress in the state. No governor will want his state to go up in flames. No sincere governor who means well for the state will want the state to go up in flames. So anybody conjecturing that that is his own, he's at liberty to hold such opinion. But the governor has come out to say, this is why I am doing this. So I hold the governor, to his word.
Okay, let's begin to tie it up now. Incidentally, efforts are already in top gear, as they say, to recall Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan. We understand that all of the petitions in their hundreds of thousands have been submitted to INEC. INEC has now said that there's a likelihood that in the next 90 days it will carry out a referendum. We understand this process is rigorous, again, based on constitutional provisions. And then there are those, political analysts who say that it's more expensive to elect a senator or a member of House of Representatives than to recall them. Are we putting our money where our mouth is?
It is the civic responsibility of the electorates of his, senatorial zone to, call for his recall. They are exercising their right, their freedom. So if in their, thoughts and intentions, and they feel she's not representing them well, and they decide that they want her recalled, it is their right. Whatever it caused them to do, to carry out the project, is their own problem. It is not my problem. They were the ones that elected her ab initio. They also have the right to recall her as well.
Does this look like a new trend dawning in Nigeria where recall is becoming a popular kind of phenomenon? For example, there's a senator too from Edo State, Barrister Neda Imaswe, who happens to be the chairman of the now very controversial Committee on Ethics and Privileges, being said to be recalled, all right, by his own constituents from Edo South Senatorial Districts. Are we going to, from what you see right now, see pockets of these recall efforts?
There is laid down procedures and rules, for embarking on such a project.
Right.
So if in their wisdom as well, they feel he has not represented them well, and they want to recall him, it is their right. They should exercise their right. That is how I see it.
All right. I think this recall conversation is long drawn out, but we've just started. Again, like my guest just said, the Constitution is very clear as to the conditions or the circumstances under which recall exercise can be carried out and what the requirements are. In the case of Senator Natasha Potudwala, INEC says it has commenced the whole process. It has notified the National Assembly. Of course, the senator herself has been notified, and it says that in the next 90 days, there's the likelihood that it will commence a referendum. Let's see how that will turn out. But this appears like a whole new vista in our political experience in this country. I would like to say a big thank you to my guest this morning, Chief Chibuna Ubawuike, for taking out time.
Thank you so much.
To come on the program. For the records, Chief Ubawuike is a stalwart of the APC, as well as a staunch, I dare to say, unrepentant supporter of President Bola Tinubu. We'll take a quick break, everyone. When we return, Queen Agaba and I will be back here to bring you the second lap of this program.